Mr. President, as the ranking member on the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources, I was especially pleased by President Trump's decision to withdraw the nomination of William Perry Pendley to lead the Bureau of Land Management. Of course, it's the BLM as we know it. And I said, when the President nominated Mr. Pendley, he is the wrong person, the wrong job, in the wrong place, and he should not continue to lead the Bureau. The job of the Director of the Bureau of Land Management is not just another presidential appointment. It is a sacred public trust. The Director of the BLM is one of the principal stewards of our public lands, as we're hearing from our colleagues today. The Bureau of Land Management manages 245 million acres of public land, more land than any other federal agency. The Bureau is required by law to manage the lands, committed to its care not only for the benefit of our own generation, but for many generations to come. It must carefully balance the use of the land for grazing, timber production, mineral development, recreation, fish and wildlife, and the protection of scenic, scientific, and historic values of the lands. In addition to the 245 million acres of surface land the Bureau manages, it also manages another 700 million acres of subsurface mineral rights. It manages over 63,000 oil and gas wells and over 300 coal leases, covering nearly 500,000 acres of coal lands, which together contribute about $4 billion a year to the federal treasury. It manages another 55 million acres of timber lands and 155 million acres of grazing lands. It issues permits for wind, solar, and geothermal energy development. In addition, more than 10 years ago, Congress designated about 36 million acres of the lands managed by the Bureau of National Conservation Lands because of their outstanding cultural, ecological, and scientific value. National conservation lands include 28 national monuments covering nearly 8 million acres, over 260 wilderness areas covering nearly 10 million acres, and nearly 3,000 miles of wild and scenic rivers, and nearly 6,000 miles of historic and scenic trails. Nearly 50 years ago, Congress declared that the public lands managed by the Bureau of Land Management should be retained in federal ownership and managed to preserve and to protect them without permanent impairment of the productivity of the land and the quality of the environment. That, in a nutshell, is the job of the Director of the Bureau of Land Management, to be a good and faithful steward of the people's lands, so that we might pass them on to our children and our children's children in at least as good of condition as we inherit them, if not better. Mr. Pendley is not the right person for this job. He spent most of his adult life arguing against the principles upon which our federal land management policy is based. He's called for the sale of the public lands that the BLM is responsible for retaining and managing. He has called for the repeal of the Antiquities Act upon which our national monuments were founded. He has denigrated the National Environmental Policy Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the Clean Waters Act, the bedrock environmental laws that Bureau must operate under. He cannot be a good steward of the public domain if he does not believe the public should have domain, and he rejects the laws designed to preserve and protect it. His extreme views and inflammatory rhetoric do not stop at the public lands. He had denied the existence of climate change, comparing it to a unicorn, and those who acknowledge it as kooks. He said that the Black Lives Matter movement is based on a lie. He has said the undocumented immigrants are like a cancer. Mr. Pendley was nominated for the office once before. People might not realize. President Reagan nominated him to be the Assistant Secretary for Energy and Minerals in 1983. While his nomination was pending, he was being investigated by the Department of the Interior's Inspector General and the Department of Justice for possibly violating conflict of interest rules. The Senate returned his nomination to the President, and he was not confirmed. The General Accounting Office later found that the Interior Department sold the coal leases in the Powder River Basin at roughly $100 million less than their estimated fair market value. The below-market sales were made possible by a change in bidding procedures approved by Mr. Pendley on that same day that he had dinner with the coal industry lawyers. The Inspector General referred the matter to the Justice Department for possible criminal prosecution. The Justice Department ultimately declined to prosecute Mr. Pendley, but he left the department shortly afterwards. For all these reasons, I think Mr. Pendley is the wrong person to lead the Bureau of Land Management today. He is still there in the position and having the authority to run the BLM. He should not be there a minute longer. The President was right to withdraw his nomination, not be right for the President to remove him from that position. But withdrawing his nomination, it doesn't solve that problem, and we know that. It is outrageous that he continues to exercise the authority of the director, despite having been nominated and withdrawn for a cause. Although the legality of his role is a matter pending in the courts right now, Mr. Pendley is still, in effect, running the Bureau of Land Management and continuing to make decisions negatively impacting millions of acres of public lands of significant importance to millions of Americans, all without the proper vetting and approval of the Senate. That is simply wrong. And I believe on both sides of the aisle we know wrong when we see it. He should resign, or Secretary Bernhardt should remove him, or the President should step in and remove him. Withdrawing his nomination was a step in the right direction. But for all the reasons I've outlined today, William Pendley is not qualified to be managing our nation's treasured public lands in any capacity. So I would ask President Trump to kindly and respectfully step in and remove a person who does not justify the office that he is holding right now and the decisions he's making for all of us in our generation and generations to come. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.